Hello, welcome to the first edition of North Penn Answers. I'm your host, Joe Sullivan, a member of the North Penn School Board and the parent of two North Penn graduates. I'm joined by Vince Sierpinski, president of the North Penn School Board. Today, we begin this program with one goal in mind, to directly answer your questions. Questions about school business, budget, academic programs, frankly, anything. For the past year and a half, we have been running the question and answer forum on the district website. The forum is entitled, Say What? We have had over 350 questions come through this website. Let's start right off with the major question we have been hearing all year long. Why is the North Penn School District struggling with this year's budget?
Every year is a struggle, but since the Great Recession has started, our difficulties have not been about expenditures, it's all about revenues. Of course, we need to continue to find more ways to be efficient, and in this year we have, closing most of our $14 million budget gap, but it's the revenue decreases that have put the biggest strain on our budget and school district. In fact, this year's budget is nearly $3 million less than last year's, but our revenues were down $4.4 million compared to the previous school year. Revenues are down for a variety of reasons, including reassessment appeals, a decrease in real estate sales and growth, and cuts in both state and federal funding. In particular, the annual tax revenue for commercial properties, specifically one of our biggest, the Montgomery Mall, recently challenged their assessment appeals, and we've come to a settlement agreement with them, which has reduced their tax revenues by $193,185. And an additional property related to the mall is the J.C. Penney's property, which also challenged its assessment, and they've been able to have a reduction of about $79,000. And here's how important it is to us as a school district. We've had over 43 commercial properties challenge their assessments and had a granted reduction of about 12.7%, which means a tax revenue loss to the school district of $264,843. Add to that 109 residential properties who've had their average assessment reduced by about 12%, and that is another revenue loss of about $52,000. Last year, taxpayer appeals combined with less development and growth has resulted in the total assessment value of the school district for the first time in the history of North Penn to go down by $10 million. Note that in the earlier years, the average assessed value was increasing by over $100 million per year. So we've not only lost $10 million over last year, but we've also lost the growth factor of $100 million, which we've come to depend on over the last 6 to 7 years. Now, we're doing everything we can to fight some of these decreases, including successfully working with our state legislators to restore partial funding and working with local agencies to reverse real estate assessments. But this year's struggle with the budget is just the beginning. In 2012, 2013, our budget will be even more challenging, and our process in developing it has already begun.
So in summary, we're losing state revenue, we're losing federal revenue, our local tax base is shrinking, our employee expenses are increasing. That sounds like a real big challenge for next year as well.
We've taken revenue losses from the state, from the federal government. We've seen assessment appeals growing. All those things have led to a reduction in our revenues. While our expenses have been controlled, and again, we've lowered our expenses by $3 million over last year, it doesn't offset the tremendous revenue losses that we're facing, close to $4.4 million over last year.
Well, thank you, Vince. Another question people have been asking is, the district is living with vacancies whenever possible. What does that mean?
One of the ways we handle cost containment, every time we receive notification that an employee is leaving our employment, whether it's for retirement or leaving for another job or any other reason, the district commences an in-depth process to determine whether that position needs to be filled or whether the work of that position can be moved elsewhere. Last year, this meant approximately 25 teaching positions were not filled, 4 administrative positions were not filled, and 30 support staff positions were not filled.
Teachers, administrator, and support staff are all living with vacancies. And I imagine that means less people have to do, add more things. In other words, less people are doing more in their individual jobs.
What we've been able to do is assess each position individually and whether we can live with that vacancy or not. And we've been able to live with those vacancies and not affect our programs and offerings.
So our level of service and our student achievement has not been affected.
No, that's one of the big goals.
Good. Another area of concern is the board recently hired a transportation consultant to help make efficiencies with the district's bus routes, seating capacities, and more. Can you tell us why consultant was needed rather than using the staff currently in place in the transportation department?
Sure. North Penn is looking at transportation cost and cost containment. One of the biggest expenses a school district has is obviously the transportation of its students. North Penn recently reached out to Education Logistics, which is a team of national experts in the area of transportation, and it is the school district's current software provider for routing and efficiencies. Although we have staff members who are very knowledgeable and skilled with this software, the Edulog consultants bring with them even more expertise, plus the best practices from school districts across the United States. With their help and over the next 3 years, we believe we can decrease transportation costs by $3 to $4 million per year. This is a huge savings worth a minimal cost for a consultant.
So we're projecting a savings of $3 to $4 million per year over the next 3 to 4 years.
Implement it within the next 1 to 3 years.
And a big part of that cost reduction is it's going to be a collaboration between the school district, parents, and students to help us be able to save that amount of money. So naturally, parents will be wondering how these changes or potential changes in transportation affect the amount of bus stops, ride time, etc.
Sure. Working with our staff who really knows the intricacies of our own community, Edulog will research whether changing the start and ending times of various schools will help make our transportation services more efficient. This study will look at multiple factors: bus ridership, bus capacity, walking distances, and bus stop frequency. Because all of these affect efficiency and cost, it's going to take time. This isn't going to happen next week, though all these strategies that will be reviewed with the possible implementation during the next 1 to 3 years. A big part of this effort will take communication with our parents and our community, and members will be a big part of this work.
That's great. Community collaboration is what is going to make this possible.
Yep.
There seems to be a bit of confusion over the demotion of teachers that took place in June. Can you explain to us why this happened?
Sure. The school district staff worked extremely hard this year to reduce expenditures and realize increased revenues in other areas. One of those efforts was the Innovation Celebration, which was an incredible event where ideas equaling millions of dollars of savings were presented, several of them being implemented for the 2011-2012 school year. Because of this hard work to curtail cost and work on cost containment, we have been able to sustain programs and retain positions more so than many of our neighboring school districts. But the biggest part of a school district's budget is salaries, and we need to look at ways of saving money in this area. We looked at all employee groups to take a 6-month pay freeze. The teachers union voted not to accept the freeze and our offer of giving them 2 days off with pay and a guarantee there would be no layoffs for the 2011-2012 school year. The approximate $1.4 million that would have been saved by this freeze had to be made up in some other way. The demotion of 36 teachers from full-time to part-time equals this amount of money. We didn't want to do this, but we had very little choice. Our goal through this budget process has been to protect the North Penn School District's core mission of providing an excellent education for our students, and together we have done that. But some compromises had to be made.
And it appears, based on our discussion with the projection of finances, local real estate tax base revenue contracting, and employee costs increasing, that this issue will probably have to be revisited again in future budgets.
Sure. We know that the state restored partial funding with the expectation that they won't do it again the coming year. That immediately causes a gap in funding, which we're going to have to deal with next year.
And it's not pleasant on anybody.
No.
Nobody enjoys looking at this
No.
and affecting people's lives and their careers. But it's just the reality of the situation. Something has to give. The pie is only so big. And we have to maintain our student achievement level and the quality of education we can afford the children of this community.
The community expects us to maintain quality education at an affordable price. One of the bigger challenges, obviously, with the loss of state and federal funding, the assessment appeals, and the contraction of those streams of revenue lead us to make some very tough choices in the future, and we're going to be ready for it.
And I think Dr. Dietrich had an appropriate quote in the paper this weekend where he said, I paraphrase, that a school district it attracts people to live here. So we want to make sure that we have a quality education, a quality school district, and even with the constraints that we have to work with. So that's always forefront in our minds.
One of the biggest reasons that most people move to school districts is the quality of the schools. That's why North Penn has been so attractive to so many people for so many years. And that's one of the reasons why I moved here, too.
I got you. Me as well. So the district administration and non-unionized support staff are experiencing a wage freeze until January. How does this help the school district's budget?
The administration and non-union support staff have once again partnered with us to help the entire school district. Their 6-month pay freeze is the savings we need in the salary lines to maintain staffing in those areas and balance our budget. This is the second time in 3 years that these staff members have taken a pay freeze, and their support is truly appreciated.
I'd like to personally thank them for their contribution and sacrifice to helping us maintain a fiscally sound budget and maintain the level of services to our customers, which are the students in the community.
Without their help, we couldn't be able to do it.
These are only a few questions that people may have. We encourage you to participate in these discussions and pose your questions anytime through the budget input at northpenn.org, through www.northpenn.org, and our Say What forum, or at any public meeting. These are difficult times for everyone, and the North Penn School District is certainly not immune. We all need to work together, innovate together, and find solutions together to continue the excellence the North Penn School District is known for throughout our community, throughout the state, and throughout the nation. Thank you for watching.